You know, your brain is running all these hidden programs in the background, constantly shaping your thoughts and actions in ways you probably don't even notice. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that hidden operating system and uncover some of the most surprising psychological effects that are secretly running your life. So let me ask you a question. Do you think you're really in complete control of every single choice you make? Well, as we're about to find out, it's a little more complicated than that. All right, first up, let's talk about the world outside your own head. I mean, how does just having other people around change what you do, often without you even realizing it? Okay, so let's start with something called social facilitation. Have you ever noticed that you can run just a little bit faster during a race than when you're training alone? Or maybe you work out harder at the gym when you know people are watching? That's social facilitation in a nutshell. But here's the thing, it's not always that simple. Because then you've got this other thing, the Ringelmann effect. And this seems like the total opposite, right? Think about any group project you've ever been in or a game of tug of war. It turns out the bigger the team gets, the less effort each individual person actually puts in. So what gives? Why does a crowd sometimes help you and sometimes, well, make you lazy? So what's the deal? Well, it all boils down to accountability. With social facilitation, you feel like there's a spotlight on you, so you step up your game. But with the Ringelmann effect, you can kind of blend into the crowd. Your personal effort doesn't feel as important, so you slack off a bit. This is a huge concept called diffusion of responsibility, and it has some really serious implications. And that idea, that diffusion of responsibility, leads us to something pretty serious, the bystander effect. You see, in an emergency, we have this tendency to assume, oh, someone else will handle it. That responsibility gets spread so thin across a crowd that, tragically, sometimes nobody does anything at all. It's the exact same mental program as slacking off in a group project, just with far, far higher stakes. All right, so we've looked at how other people can mess with our heads. Now let's turn the spotlight inward and check out some of the crazy shortcuts and blind spots our own brains are using all the time. Okay, take a look at this quote with me. You have a need for other people to like and admire you, and yet you tend to be critical of yourself. Let that sink in for a second. Does that sound familiar? You know, I'm willing to bet that for a lot of you, you're nodding your head right now. It feels so personal, right? Like it's hitting on something deep inside you. But there's a little bit of a trick happening here. And that trick is called the Barnum effect. This is the absolute secret sauce behind things like horoscopes, fortune telling, and even some of those online personality quizzes. The descriptions are just so general that pretty much anyone can read them and think, wow, that's totally me. Our brains are just wired to hunt for personal meaning, even when there isn't any. It's funny, our brains also judge people in some really weird, counterintuitive ways. Take the pratfall effect. So get this, if someone you see as super competent, an expert, makes a silly mistake, like spilling coffee all over themselves, you actually end up liking them more. It makes them seem human. But here's the kicker. This only works for people you already think are competent. If just an average person does it, their likability actually goes down. Ouch. And speaking of blind spots, have you ever tried to explain something you know really well to a total beginner? It's hard. And that brings us to the curse of knowledge. Basically, once you know something, it's almost impossible to remember what it was like not to know it. You start using all this jargon, you skip over what feel like obvious steps, and you end up leaving the other person totally in the dust. Okay, for this last section, let's get really personal. We're talking about your memory. We love to think of it as this perfect high-definition video recording of our past. But the truth, it's a lot more like a living story that your brain edits and rewrites every single time you remember it. Let's do a quick thought experiment. First, just picture a person's face. They're looking right at you, totally neutral expression. Got it? Okay, now imagine seeing that exact same neutral face, but right after it, you see an image of a coffin. Remember, it's the same face as before. So, what's that person feeling now? All of a sudden, you see sadness, right? Maybe grief? But it's the same face. Your brain just automatically connected the dots and created an emotion that literally wasn't there a second ago. What you just experienced is called the Kuleshov effect, and it's a huge deal in filmmaking. It just goes to show our brains aren't passive cameras just recording what's there. No, they're active storytellers, constantly creating meaning by linking things together. Context is everything. And because our mind is a storyteller, it also means our memories are way more fragile than we think. I'm talking about the misinformation effect. This is where your memory of an event can actually be changed by stuff you learn after it happened. So if someone mentions a false detail about something you saw, your brain can literally rewrite your memory to include it. And you'll be absolutely convinced that's how it really went down. And this isn't just a hypothetical thing. They can actually demonstrate this in a lab using something called the DRM paradigm. Imagine I give you a list of words: bed, rest, dream, tired. Later, if I ask you if the word sleep was on the list, you'd probably say yes, but it wasn't. Your brain just filled in the blank because it seemed so logical, and it created a memory of something that never actually happened. It's powerful proof that memory isn't a recording, it's a reconstruction. Okay, so after hearing about all these mental glitches and hidden programs, you might be thinking, so what are we supposed to do about it? Well, the point isn't to completely distrust your brain. It's about becoming a better, more critical observer of how it works. Really, it all comes down to this: awareness is your superpower. Just knowing that these effects are out there, that you might get lazy in a big group, that you might fall for a vague personality test, that your memory isn't a perfect recording, that knowledge helps you start to notice them in real time. It's like learning to see the source code behind human behavior. And that right there is the real takeaway. So now that you know a little bit about the code running in the background, my question to you is, what are you going to notice differently? Because trust me, once you start looking for these patterns, you'll see them absolutely everywhere.